All right. Well, hello, Rick. I am
Hi.
so happy to have you here in our Be an Eco Hero series. I want to introduce you to the folks who are watching. This is Rick Erkeneff. Did I say
Erkeneff,
that
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Erkeneff.
yeah.
Yep. And Rick is the vice chairman for the South Orange County chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. Surfrider Foundation, if you're not familiar, has been around since 1984. They have over 80 chapters that are in different counties and states, and they also have hundreds of scholastic clubs. Is that did I use the right word
Yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah. So,
Awesome.
actually, interestingly enough, the Scholastic program began here in South Orange County. Um, my wife and I, we have two young, well, not young daughters anymore, but they used to be in grade school and schools, and the school that they were attending required them to have service hours, and Surfrider was one of the organizations that the kids could get their hours through. Well, of course, everybody knew that we were part of it, so we'd get a call towards the end of the semester and be like, "Hey, Thursday, can my kid get 10 hours of beach cleanup?" And we're like, we're just volunteers, right? Like, so my wife worked with our global headquarters, which interestingly enough is based in San Clemente. They spent, gosh, months and months, and a year later, the youth program was
That's
launched.
amazing. Yeah. Well,
It is,
let's mention your wife Denise because she
yes,
is a powerhouse, that lady.
yeah,
She's amazing.
yeah.
And she you were telling me Denise is the chapter
Chapter coordinator, part-time.
coordinator,
Yeah,
right?
she's a part-time employee. And sometimes we lean on her because she's like, getting hours. But yeah, so anyway, so she helped form the youth program. Our chapter, it varies between 8 and 10 high schools. So what happens is we get a kid that gets really fired up about forming the club, and then they create their team, and then they go off to college, and if they haven't recruited the next person to take over the keys to the car, so to speak, the club will
Right.
poof and be
Right.
gone. So we've had ebbs and flows of that. We had a road trap chapter, high school chapter once, that took over one of our beach cleanups. I was down at Salt Creek
I
waiting for
love it.
everybody to come down the hill, and they've set their table up by the parking lot. So they signed everybody in, and then comes marching down like 60 people. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? And then I'm like, hey, I need the sign-in list. And they were like, no, this is our list. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're all on the same team here, like we
Right.
coordinate. So, we have had a rogue high school chapter. These four girls
That's
were
funny.
adamant that they were keeping their list. So I was like, oh, well, okay, whatever. As long as you're doing good work, that's all
That's
we
right.
care
And
about.
that's what this half hour is about. It's about inspiring eco heroes, people who want to make a difference, going above and beyond. And you and Denise are actually both eco heroes in my
Yeah.
eyes and in the eyes of many people. And so before we get started, tell me, what was that aha moment in your life when you decided, hey, I want to, you can go home and watch TV, you like football, you like different things, you could go surfing, but what made you decide to actually go and give some of your personal time to making a difference?
Well, I appreciate that question because that's a really important question. It's good to start kind of, with the history of folks. Mine actually started, interestingly enough, fighting the Strands development. So for those of folks that are listening that don't know, there was an old trailer park at Dana Strand, adjacent to where I grew up. I was walking, fortunate enough, privileged enough, whatever word you want to use, to be able to walk to the beach since I was, 5, 6 years old. And there was an old trailer park that fell in disrepair. So it was a big swatch of open space. And a developer came in and proposed an incredible, huge project. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of homes, multiple hotels. And that eventually got me to be a part of something that could at least slow that down or kind of limit what was going to be put into the ground. And so
Right.
we it, it we considered, I don't know if we considered a win, because Surfrider wasn't really measuring campaigns with wins and losses as they do now, but There's now 3 rows of homes in the Strands development, and they moved the revetment 10 feet towards the ocean when they put it in. So if you go down to Strands Beach, even right now, you'll notice that, there is no beach, but in the summertime, the sand does come back. It's a cyclical cycle. But the good news is we got the open space up on the headlands on the promontory point. That land has been set aside in perpetuity. There's trails from sun up to
It's
sundown.
beautiful. Yeah.
And I mean, right now is a great time. The spring, I mean, the wildflowers are going to explode. There's all kinds of endangered species, that live on that land. Those trails connect to the City of Dana Point's trail system. And there's kind of an interesting, actually ironic story behind all that. But yeah,
And
so
what
the
I also
trails are
love,
there.
if I can interrupt, is
Yeah,
there's an interpretive center there. And
yeah,
so if people want to go whale watching and maybe they're someone that's not really like a boat lover, they can actually go up onto these beautiful trails
yeah.
and be up on these cliffs that before you couldn't even get access to.
My whole life, I'd never been out on the cliffs because there was giant, barbed wire and chain link fence.
Exactly. And now you
And
can get
so,
out there on these beautiful, stunning trails
yeah,
and overlook, you're up on the headlands and you
yeah,
can see for miles and miles and miles. And there's like little looking glass binocular type
yeah,
things, stations up there. So you really have brought public access.
yeah,
It's amazing. So
yeah,
let's talk really quick about, I'm just sharing my screen here
yeah.
on what the 5 thrusts are of the Surfrider Foundation. So we have plastic reduction, ocean protection, beach access, coast and climate, and clean water. And I kind of want to start with plastic reduction because you and Denise and the Surfrider Foundation were instrumental in a recent measure in Laguna Beach. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, it had its first reading. It's an ordinance to ban balloons in public spaces. So the balloon industry is kind of, to me, it's kind of a dying industry in that, the lighter than air, the helium is a limited resource. There's actually a helium shortage on our planet. So to fill a balloon as kind of a one-time use is, to me, just not a responsible way. And I always kind of joke. I said, you never hear a 6-year-old comment after a birthday party how great the balloons were, So I mean, and I get
Sure.
there's balloons for graduations and Valentine's Day and all that, but to flip the coin, you guys that go out onto the ocean, I mean, how many balloons did you pick up last year? I mean, it's got
Right.
to be
Yeah. Yeah. We
like
started
hundreds.
keeping track, both Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and us, as part of our being a World Whale Heritage Site. One of our initiatives was to, when we're out there, count the balloons that we retrieve or
Yeah.
the number of times we retrieve them. And we retrieved over 1,200 times in 1 year.
Wow.
And that sometimes that's twice on a trip. As I have mentioned before, sometimes when people go out whale watching, there are more times where we see balloons, but they're not keen
Yeah.
on stopping more than twice. That's about the max that they
Well, and
can
those are
do.
the balloons that still have the helium in them. Once it goes out, they either sink or
Yes.
they get ingested
Yes.
by
Yeah.
marine mammals and the like. So I mean, and
It's a real problem.
the strings are a problem. So
Yep.
and then the ink, the ink is toxic on them. So we find balloons where all the ink has been washed off. You don't even know what kind of balloon it was.
Well, that's right. It ends up looking like a jellyfish. And
Yeah. So
we do
yeah,
have dolphins, Risso's dolphins that feed on jellyfish and birds and turtles and all of that. So it's definitely a problem. So we were delighted to support your efforts and just be one of those, voices that says, hey, this is what we see. Because if you're not out on the water, you don't see it. All you think is, oh, look at the pretty balloon flying by. But it's like, you got to
yeah,
see
it's
where
a
this ends
killer.
up,
Yeah. And there's
exactly.
other reasons too, even on land, the certain type of balloons will, create explosions, when they come in contact with the electrical high tension wires. And
Yeah, that is
you
a
can
big
look all
problem.
that up. But
Right.
we did get a styrofoam ban here for single use for like food products in Dana Point, in Laguna, and in San Clemente. And in fact, the first styrofoam ban that we got was in San Clemente, and it was inspired by one of our high school club members.
That's
Um,
awesome.
we had Disneyland had a launch where it was Disney for a day. If you participated in an approved nonprofit organization volunteering and you did your work, then you got a day at Disneyland for free. So we signed up a beach cleanup, and it filled up like 500 people in less than
Wow.
4 hours. So my wife got on there and she did like 6 more beach cleanups. Well, interestingly enough, one of them we couldn't make it to. So we passed the keys over to the cleanup for one of our high school students. And for whatever reason, down in South San Clemente, they just, it was all styrofoam.
Wow.
And so the student said, I'm going to count how many pieces and I'm going to get a styrofoam ban in San Clemente. And we kind of chuckled. We said, really? Well, knock yourself out. And sure enough, I mean, we worked with staff, and I mean, took time, but, and I'll never forget, she was in the city council meeting. She was telling them, we got, 400,000 pieces of styrofoam. And one of the council members scoffed at her and said, prove it. And so she had developed a method for counting the pieces. She'd fill up a cup and they guesstimate how many were in a cup. And it was like a lot. I mean, it was legit.
Well, let's talk about that, because
yeah.
one of the big ways to get involved for people who are watching, if they want to be an eco hero, is they can volunteer with Surfrider Foundation to do beach cleanups, and that is one of the things that you do. And you and I were talking earlier, so you have something you're going to show us. Let's look at what happens to styrofoam and some plastics, and why beach cleanups are so important. So, can you
I don't
guys
know
see
if you
that?
can see
Right.
this is my little vial of Nerdles.
Tell us what a Nerdle is.
So a Nerdle is the building blocks. It's raw plastic. And in the 1970s, there was a huge Nerdle spill in the LA area, like a container's worth. And I remember finding those when I was a kid at our beaches here at Strand Salt Creek. And I didn't know what a Nerdle was. I just knew it was a Nerdle, right? And but as a lot of industries go, plastic industry is really messy. And the sad news is it's like less than 5% of the plastic that we even try to recycle gets recycled. Right. So there's a myth when you see the little chasing triangle, the arrows. I mean, that's just to tell somebody what that piece of plastic is made out of. Now, if it's a 1 or a 2, it's got a chance of being recycled. Anything above 1 or 2, there's really no chance to get it recycled. So, and then it's got to be clean. It's got to be in the right, environment. Right. So basically, it's when you put your bin on the street and the trash services come and picks it up, it's really a needle in a haystack for them.
Well, that brings us to the next thing that Surfrider does. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but
No, that's all right.
I don't want to hesitate to mention, being an eco hero like this young lady, which was awesome. She should be our poster child for being an eco hero, because what we want to do is inspire younger people and older people who, when you're retired, you have a little more time on your hands, and maybe you want to do this. You don't have to have a lot of special skills. You just have to have a passion for wanting to have your local area or your planet be a cleaner place. And you can go down, you can do the beach cleanup, but you can also do take part or give to support some legislation. So you guys recently did the balloon initiative that you're working on in Laguna Beach, and then hopefully Dana Point as well. But you've got these tiny little pieces of plastic, and you and I were talking about the experience of being on the beach, seeing all these tiny little pieces of styrofoam, and how that kind of was a big initiative for Surfrider and getting styrofoam banned. But it gets even bigger than that. So you're even going beyond that to change and hopefully bring about some legislation that will prevent it from happening in the first place. So tell us about that.
Well, again, it's the beach cleanups are on ramps. So when folks participate in beach cleanups, and I still do them every time I go down there, I had to stop jogging on the beach because I was so frustrated running past pieces of plastic, right? So the honest truth. So, but the beach cleanups are on ramps, and you can go on the Surfrider website, and the other organizations do beach cleanups, and it's great. It's great to kind of understand what the problem is. But Surfrider is all about solutions. So if we identify a problem, we're going to have a best practice or solution behind it. And so in the case of the plastics, say plastic bags, grocery bags. So we got a bag ban done in Dana Point. We got a bag ban done in Laguna. We got a bag ban, not our chapter, but North Orange County did in Huntington Beach. And then the city council came on and they reversed the ban. So nothing's ever set in stone. But we were doing it city by city because the state was dragging their heels on the bag bans. So we disrupted the supply chain for the major grocers to where one town could have plastic bags and the next town couldn't. And what we found was when you put a fee on having to, say, buy a paper bag, it changes behavior very quickly, like in the 90 percentile. So we went up to Sacramento over years. It was time. It was a lot of time. It was multiple years. We finally got a plastic bag ban passed. And then the city of Dana Point, interestingly enough, had passed the ordinance prior to the state. And so their ordinance was grandfathered in. Now, the council folks in Dana Point said, we don't want to have our retailers charge anything. And so then that put a burden onto the grocers to give away a free bag. Well, the grocers, Ralph's in particular, found a loophole. So now they're actually charging for bags years later, you know, and it's an expense. I mean, people don't realize it's not free.
Right.
I think the grocers were spending about $6,000 to $8,000 a month just on giving away free plastic bags.
There's so much to do with Surfrider, and I really want to inspire people to get involved, to do something. The next event that you guys have coming up, where people could volunteer and come out and do some beach cleanup, when is that?
Oh gosh, you're putting me on the spot. I'd have to look on our calendar because our chapter has an annual planning meeting, and we haven't had our planning meeting yet. So I think tentatively we have our beach cleanups locking in. If that is our South Orange County chapter.
Well, I'm here on the website. It's southoc.surfrider.org, and you can volunteer right here. And then they'll tell you when the next one is. But we also have another event coming up, and that's a Be an Eco Hero event. This is a dolphin and whale watching trip during the Festival of Whales at noon on our boat, the new boat, the Hokunaya. And we're making it free for kids to come 12 and under if they have one paying adult with them at least, and they can come on out. They can meet a couple of people from Surfrider Foundation. They can meet a couple of people from Pacific Marine Mammal Center. Maybe they are interested in doing some volunteer work there. Stand Up for Trash. There's hopefully a selection of people who can inspire. If you're watching this and you're not young, and maybe you want your kiddos to be inspired, and put the video game down. And here's the really cool thing. When they get involved and they become a little more global in their thinking, it changes their brain. It really does. And when they're outside cleaning up trash and being exposed to nature, that also changes their brain in really positive ways. So it's a win-win-win because the planet's getting cleaner and their brains are changing. And we all could use a little bit more of that, especially after being inside during COVID.
And your point to that, I think that's where a lot of, you know, this kind of debris cleanup, trash cleanup comes from, because, you know, we're so fortunate to live on the coast. And when you step onto the beach and you look out to the ocean, I mean, you're on the edge of an incredible ecosystem. And when a balloon washes up or a piece of plastic washes up, it takes you right back to go, wow, somebody littered or somehow that piece got there. And there's some beaches that are way dirtier than others. I mean, we stay on top of it here, as does the county and the city and the state. But you know, it'd be like in nature. You finally hike to, you know, let's say Half Dome, right? And then there's a balloon in a tree. It really jars the brain for a lot of folks, myself included. Like I said, I can't jog on the beach anymore because there's so much debris that I feel obligated to stop and pick it up, because if I don't grab that and somebody else doesn't and it gets into the ocean, it's gone forever, you know. And
I agree. And I do want to give a shout out though, because, you know, if you travel to other countries, depending on the country, it's shocking the amount of trash that is out there, just
Yeah.
like mind blowing. So
Yeah.
we are really blessed here, especially I think in Orange County, to have a lot less. At least that's been my experience. I don't know if there's official numbers on that, like this area has less trash,
Yeah.
but we do have a lot more advocacy and a lot more, I think, citizen involvement. And that's a powerful testimony to the work that Surfrider's doing, people like you and Denise kind of holding it together, carrying the
Yeah.
torch and moving forward. So I really want to thank you for everything that you're doing, for being so inspirational, and maybe we'll get you out on a trip and you
Oh
can
God, I'd love. I'm trying to find a
put it
12-year-old
on
I
the
can take down there.
the
See that.
calendar.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that sounds like a
Thank
great
you, Rick. I
opportunity.
really appreciate your time today. There's so much to cover and there's a lot more. But if anybody is interested, they can go to surfrider.org and see all the different chapters. If you're not in Orange County, there's probably one near you. And if there isn't
Yep.
one, start one, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's how it is. It's
exactly.
Surfrider has always started, organically, and also, if even if you don't live coastal, you can purchase a $25 per year annual membership, and if that's all you do, that's great because our
Right.
global headquarters is in San Clemente, as I said, and we have scientists and lawyers and all the people that are on staff that makes the machine run.
Make it happen.
And we're a 4-star charity navigator. You can look us all up. It's completely legit. I like to volunteer personally. It's time, talent, and
Yeah.
money. And
Yeah.
I like to volunteer my time and my talent and maybe a little bit of money every year. But
Well,
it's
thank you for doing all of
yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's just me kind of been inspired, and once I'm on this path, I'm pretty much a lifer now. Nobody's gonna stop me from picking up trash on the
I
beach.
love it. Thank you.
Yeah.